Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to welcome Mr. John Falcon to the stage. He's one of the main people driving this force. So a warm welcome for Mr. John Falcon, please.
Ashley, thank you so much for such a gracious introduction. And it's great to see a young Hispanic like Ashley in the education field, especially when it appears that the Hispanic population will soon become a viable political majority in Texas. According to demographic statistics, that's supposed to happen sometime in 2016. I await that moment with a heartfelt anticipation. It feels good to see the Hispanic population in Texas joining the mainstream of society. We have earned it in many ways. Education is one of them. So Ashley, may God bless you with a great career in education, young lady. You earned it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this conference. Buenos días, damas y caballeros, por su presencia aquí en esta junta. Ahora vamos a pasar otra marca en este movimiento tocante terrenos de nuestros ancestros, terrenos que se perdieron por parte de una munición de muertes de tejanos asesinados por estos mismos terrenos y otras chanchullas y crímenes de gentes criminal que resultaron aquí, en esta región, específicamente para tomar ventaja de toda la tempestad de revolución que ocurrió en esta parte de Texas en épocas y siglos pasados. Ahora, para tomar mejor uso de este tiempo que hemos dedicado para esta conferencia, voy a invitar, después de que se termine la conferencia, a cualquiera que necesite clarificación de cualquier negocio que se discutió aquí para mejor servirles. Y ahora también les pido perdón y les ruego que me dispensen que me voy a despedir en español para continuar en inglés, para servir la mayoría de las gentes que están aquí y no entienden español también como entienden inglés. Solo que, damas y caballeros, con su permiso, de aquí en adelante sigo en inglés y me dispensan, por favor. The first thing that I'd like to mention has to do with money. Please understand that the mission of this alliance is to help you arrive at some reparation, if that's possible, some kind of amend for the losses that you suffered, that your family suffered, when your lands were taken away from you. The objective that the Alliance has is to provide a path for you to be able to approach the state and have the state develop an adjudication system, which was recommended by Mr. Benny Bach. I don't know if he's here yet this morning, but he recommended that the state prepare an adjudication system so that each family could take their own case individually to the state and be considered. And here's the idea behind that. When the state took your land away, they took it with an administrative process that had been appointed by the legislature. It was called the Borland and Miller Commission. It was not a litigation process. It was an administration process. So for the state now to demand that the only way you can gain amends would be to go through the litigation process, which has reached stone walls in the state, we feel that that is improper. The state should give you an opportunity, in the same fashion that they took the land, to pose your case, each individual. And you're going to have to hire attorneys, yes, just like Trish was saying a while ago. But you're not going to have to go through the extensive litigation process that costs and drains the families of money. And our objective is to create that litigation system, that adjudication system for you that's outside of the scope of a court system, although it's going to function like a court system, and you'll probably need an attorney. But each individual family is going to present their own case. The Alliance will never touch your money. It goes directly from the state, if it ever happens, if it ever comes to pass. The money is going to go from the state to the family direct. I hope that's clear. The Alliance doesn't want to touch your money and will not take any of your money. Ladies and gentlemen, the better part of my presentation to you is going to occur in about 2 hours. Then again, during the 4th hour, when we're going to do something that you probably seldom see in the conferences of this type, we're going to organize among all the audience present communication links in each South Texas county that we can cover with the, among the audience that's present, so that progress that we make as an alliance can be disseminated among the entire Hispanic population of this state expediently. Hopefully we can do that over the entire state, but we're going to start a little piece at a time, and we're going to start in South Texas first. But first, I'd like to take a few minutes and recognize our speaker forum for today. Our keynote speaker is sitting to my right, Dr. Trinidad Gonzalez, PhD, one of 5 scholars that created the Refusing to Forget project in partnership with the Bullock Museum of Texas History in Austin. We're extremely fortunate to have Dr. Gonzalez with us today. We have so much to learn, and his research and that of his colleagues is most fortunate to have as a project sponsor thinking parallel with our cause. They have so much to offer for us. You will hear from him in a minute, momentarily. We also have Mr. Benny Bach here. Is Benny here? Raise up your hand, Benny, if you're here. We expect Mr. Benny Bach to arrive. He's a former Unclaimed Mineral Proceeds Commission member who actually submitted to the commission a recommendation for a court system that would adjudicate claims being aired during the UMPC hearings. House Bill 724, which started a tremendous amount of our movement, and others as well, had to do with the governor and some of the principals of the state wanting advice from this commission to research. And as the gentleman was saying just a while ago, does the Railroad Commission send information sufficient to the Comptroller's office to get this job done? We found, just from our research and some of the research that the commission did, that that was not correct. They did not send information complete to the Comptroller's office. So Mr. Bach is a very key friend to ours because he understands the problem, and he was willing to present that recommendation to the commission. It didn't pass. It was stymied with a 4-4 vote, so the recommendation never went forward. But the commission did recommend to the governor, Speaker of the House, and Lieutenant Governor that a committee be set up, a legislative committee, to hear the injustices that poured out of people during those hearings of House Bill 724. You see, House Bill 724 wasn't designed to handle that kind of testimony. So although it came in buckets, deluge, it could not react to it because it didn't have the authority under the written act, 724. So now what they're trying to do is set up a system, a committee, that will, in fact, receive this testimony and can handle it and make it a matter of record. Okay, Mr. Alcides Nettles was also scheduled to come. Unfortunately, he's from the Longoria clan, so I appreciate him very much. He had a problem with his business, and he's got a business. He had a conflict, so he couldn't make it. I've known Mr. Alcides Nettles for a few years. We're good friends, so I've asked him to come at other, and he'll probably make appearances in other conferences, but unfortunately he couldn't do this one. Mr. Benny Bach, during his time in the House, he passed 125 bills, so he's a very powerful advocate, and I thought I should mention that to you. Further, I'm going to update you on the progress of the Alliance as it stands today. What you can expect in the future, not just from the Alliance, but from other groups of land grant activists. You already heard some from Trish. At that time, I'm also going to speak to you about money, and we've touched on it a little bit. There are many questions that focus on money, probably from the conditioning of other advocates who profess a windfall of money for lawsuits and other actions against the state. And while no one can predict the outcomes of those approaches, I certainly can't. And there's people who are doing a great job in preparing for some of these conflicts, for some of these litigations. And some of them through the federal system may have some promise. So it isn't upon me to tell you that it will work or won't work. I don't know. It's an option that you can exercise, and this is why it's so important that the Alliance not shut the door on anyone. So I'm offering this suggestion to you. Fowler, Mrs. Fowler has or is preparing for a lawsuit, and there's another group. As a matter of fact, we have the gentleman standing here this morning, Mr. Joe Sierra. Joe, would you stand up, please? Mr. Joe Sierra is the head of Two Countries, One Lie group. They're also preparing for a federal lawsuit. And who is to say that those paths will not be successful? So what I'm saying to you is, certainly in the case of Ms. Fowler, which is supposed to be imminent, that's an option that you have that you need to exercise if you wish. Okay. The dollar per dollar return has been weak on some of these cases because Texas has been a stonewall for litigation of this type. It has just, as Trish mentioned earlier, it dismissed the case under Rule 91A. I don't want to get into a long dissertation about 91A, but 91A is a rule that a judge can use to dismiss a case on almost anything, for almost any reason. The Galan lawsuit, which is probably one of the most important, we're hopeful that it ends in a good settlement for the family, and many of those folks are here today. Although I'm not an attorney, I'm giving you a layman assessment of where I think we stand in the realm of money in that regard. Among other essential components of the missions of our goal, there is no doubt, no question that the enormous wealth the state acquired when it seized our ancestral lands, seized them either legally or illegally, is enormous. We're going to talk about that. And better still, we're going to examine modern day solutions for redeeming some of that wealth, if such redemption is possible. I think it is. And again, although I'm not an attorney, when one looks at the horrible racial discrimination imposed upon a race of people by Texas, and you're going to hear that from Dr. Gonzalez in just a moment as well, when Tejano's lands were seized, it's a wonder how the state has gotten away with it for this long. I think the day of reckoning for that injustice is not far away. I think it's just around the corner, and we need to discuss how we should handle that eventuality when the time comes. We certainly don't wish upon any other race or anyone else the horrible fate that was imposed upon us and our ancestors. Let the sons and daughters of those responsible for those injustices answer for the sins of their fathers, and not our children and our grandchildren. And this is why we must prepare for the day we finally have a working majority of elected officials in the state houses. Not to say that we don't have good people elected today. We do, among the few. But the more of us who are educated in our cause and vote, the easier it's going to be for our elected officials to pass laws that will finally bring justice to our cause. And this is a justice due to all Hispanics in Texas, not just for land-grant descendants. You will see why some of us move along in this conference, and you'll understand where we're headed with this. But hopefully, we might redeem some of these horrible losses imposed upon some of these Tejano families. It's possible. There are methods that can be done. Also, it is important that the history be corrected so that the entire nation will learn the truth about how our ancestors were so harshly treated. That is important, very important. And these are pennies from heaven that dropped in our lap when people like Dr. Gonzalez and his colleagues started this Refusing to Forget project. I can't begin to tell you the value that they have contributed to Texas and to the Hispanic race of Texas. Now, perhaps worse is how the seizing of our lands, the state chose to anoint some enterprising individuals who were in their political favor during that era with transfer of our lands for their disposal. You'll get a chance to see and learn some of that today.